How would you pronounce the name of this musical?
Les Mis.
But what's the full name?
Les Misérables.
Yeah, Les Misérables. Okay, okay, I got it.
Just Les Mis. Just Les Mis.
Just Les Mis.
It's just called Les Mis.
I will struggle with the French names. So
Okay.
Warning. I am not good with French names. And welcome to Nostalgia's Perspective, a podcast where two friends look back on the media which has influenced us. I'm Georgia.
I'm Jay, and this week we are talking about Les Mis, the musical, which was my pick, and I'm pretty sure you've forgotten about this, but Georgia, did you want to give us a synopsis?
Oh, sheesh. Oh, God.
You know, this is such an easy one to do an off-the-cuff synopsis for, when you're not that familiar with it.
Okay, I can do this.
Okay.
Brief, rough synopsis.
Yeah.
So, Jean Valjean is a slave and a prisoner because in France in 1815, and basically, he stole a loaf of bread because he was starving, and then he's ended up 19 years as a slave. And then there's this officer called Javert who's you suck. Javert is you suck. And then Jean Valjean gets let out on parole, and then he goes to a church where he steals a whole bunch of silver, and then the priest is I forgive you, and also here's more silver, time for you to restart your life. And so Jean Valjean is okay, I'm gonna start off my life. And then 8 years later, Valjean is now a mayor or factory owner, he's an important person, he's got money. And there's this woman called Fantine who's got a child in a different place, and she works in Valjean's factory in order to send money to her child Cosette, and then she gets fired by the foreman because she's being harassed, and then she ends up as a prostitute, and then she almost gets arrested by Javert, and then Valjean saves her, and she dies, and yeah, she dies. Meanwhile, Javert is you look awfully familiar, Valjean. And Valjean, kind of has to make a decision about whether he lets an innocent man go down for his crimes, or whether he announces that he is Valjean. This is so long. And then so he announces it, but then he escapes because he wants to go help Cosette, the child. So then he goes to Cosette, who is living with these nasty innkeepers, and then the two escape, and then it jumps again. There's another time jump of 9 years, and Paris is in upheaval because French Revolution, and there's this guy called Marius and this other guy whose name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, that's fine. I can't either. It's cool.
Yeah, and they want to start a revolution, and then Marius falls in love with Cosette, but there's this other girl who's in love with Marius, and then the group start an uprising, and that's the end of Act 1. And then it all goes to crap as this is where I'm really struggling. Act 2 is where I really struggle. Please help me. Please, for the love of God, help me.
Okay, it's fine. I love how this is a brief synopsis.
I'm really trying. Okay. Actually, I can do this. Okay, so then, so Marius and his friends set up a barricade, and essentially loads of people die, and Javert, like, ends up killing himself because he feels like... I don't really know why he kills himself. He kind of, like, feels like... But I don't know. It's a lot of complicated feelings. It's a good song.
He essentially starts to question his entire moral system.
Yeah, exactly. And then... So, yeah, it's all going to shit with the barricade. And so Valjean, like, saves Marius because Marius is in love with Cosette. And then, like, all of Marius's, like, friends die. And the girl who is in love with him dies. And then Marius and Cosette get married, but Valjean goes because, like, he no longer has a purpose because Cosette is happy, and then, like, he dies before, like, after saying goodbye to Cosette and Marius, and, like, he confesses, like, who he is and what his story is, and then he goes to the afterlife where he, like, meets everybody. Or is that just in the movie?
It's in the show as well.
It's in the show as well. And then everyone sings one last time for the French Revolution.
Yeah. Good job. You got through it at the end.
Thanks.
It's pretty much... I think it's a difficult show for anyone to condense down, because ultimately it's a massive book that has been condensed into, like, a 3-hour show, which a lot happens. And it is a little bit all over the place. It's not a typical structure for a story. And therefore it's hard to summarise briefly.
Yes.
So good job.
Thanks. I tried my hardest to not have a meltdown, and I missed so much out of the second act.
I don't know that you did, to be honest. Like, you missed details, but, like, the main thing is that, like, they set up the barricade and then most of them die.
Yeah.
But mostly characters we don't know. So, you know. And, the lead revolutionary, I'm going to say that his name is pronounced Enjolras.
Enjolras. Okay.
Because the problem with trying to pronounce his name is that his name isn't in any of the songs. So
I did notice that.
Yeah. So it's... Yeah, who knows? Who knows how you pronounce his name? Probably French people. Which we seem to have. Either someone set up their IP address in France, or we have one consistent Parisian listener. So maybe you can let us know. That would be lovely.
Yeah. Parisian listener, I am very sorry for how I'm about to butcher French pronunciations.
Yeah, that just occurred to me. We had one consistent Parisian listener. And now we're going to do a really bad job. Although I'm sure French people aren't probably that happy about this being the only, like, the key French representation in media. But, you know, who knows?
Who knows? I mean...
It's not bad.
No. I mean... Why did you pick it?
Oh, why did I pick it? So I love musicals. I don't know if that's come up. I think it's kind of come up when we've talked about albums a couple of times, when we talked about lyricism. And this was, I think, the first musical that really hooked me into musicals. So there was a theatre company, like an amateur theatre company near where I lived, where I grew up, that they put on, like, youth productions that, like, my friends were in. And so I went to see some of them, and one of the first ones that I saw, I think I saw Sound of Music, which I wasn't particularly enthralled by, and then I saw Les Mis, and was really impacted by it. Like, very nearly made me cry, at a time where I didn't cry a lot. I cry a lot now at things, but, which we covered last episode. But, yeah, Little Fall of Rain really, like, very nearly made me cry. And then we went back and saw it again because it was really good. And it was around this time that the film came out as well. So it was very in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And yeah, this kind of then sparked or was like the first hint of a spark of my love of musicals, which has kind of blown up since then. But this was kind of the start of it for me, so it felt right for it to be the first musical that we talked about.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into one of the things I had down to talk about, which was our experiences with theatre and with musical theatre in general. So I kind of wanted to ask you said to me off podcast before we start recording that you haven't really ever clicked with musical theatre, but kind of did you want to talk about like your experiences with musical theatre and theatre a little bit?
Okay, well, I did, as you know, I did dance between like the ages of like 3 and 13. So with that, I performed in like pantomimes.
Right.
And like, so I was like singing and dancing all throughout that, like during like my childhood, like in New Theatre in Cardiff and like all of this. And then after that, I decided that I was going to give up dancing and I was just going to do drama. And the drama group I ended up in was a musical theatre group. So like half of the class was dedicated to like just acting, and like half of the class was dedicated to like specifically musical theatre.
Right.
And so like all throughout and then we'd put on like shows.
Sure.
And I mean, like, it was a big enough, like, group that, like, it was, like, a proper, like, we booked out, like, a theatre and, like, had
Right.
performances and whatever. And so I kind of, like, I grew up all throughout my teenage years, like, performing, like, specific songs, like, from musicals.
Right. Do you remember them? Any of them?
Yeah, I did, one from Little Shop of Horrors, did a couple from Grease, did a couple from Hairspray. Never Les Mis. I wonder if like it was just slightly too heavy for dancing.
Yeah, I'd say it's less also poppy is the wrong word.
Yeah,
but
I get exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, when for whatever reason, I was much more interested in the like acting part than I think like I'm just not that strong of a singer. I'm not that strong of a dancer, like despite like dedicated like 16 of my like years of my life to singing and dancing, like 3 times a week. I just never really like, it was never really my world.
Sure.
And I took drama like in GCSE and for A-level. And so again, in school, there was plenty of opportunities. They even did a Les Mis performance. And, you know, they did those big school productions and whatever. But I think for me, I don't know. Like, I've watched musical, like, there's been, like I say, there's been so many opportunities for me to really, like, enjoy, like, musical theatre. Yeah. And, like, I've enjoyed performances and I've enjoyed doing things, but it's never been a genre that like I've gone back to on my own accord.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like it feels like something I should enjoy. Like, or at least enjoy more than I do.
Right.
And like I say, I haven't yet watched a performance. Like I watched I saw Billy Elliot on stage.
Right.
What else have I seen on stage? Yeah, I've seen a couple on stage, and I like enjoy those performances, but like I've, you know, you like listen to like albums like on a day-to-day basis, and I just like, I don't know, I just don't.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, it's not much of an answer. It was a long explanation to like not much of an answer.
No, that's fair. I think sometimes it just doesn't click in the same way, and it's one of those things about art, not to get too hoity-toity, but that like a lot of the time there isn't really a good explanation for why something clicks with you. It just does.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I say, like when I saw the show, it really did click with me. and then as I explored musicals more, it continued to click. And I think it's also one of those things that, God, I always put it back to me being gay. But kind of like that, when you come out, you can look back at like when you're younger and be like, oh, that's a sign, kind of thing. I kind of do have that with musicals a little bit as well, that like seeing this amateur production with my friends of Les Mis was the thing that properly like sparked my love of musical theatre. But like I can look back and see that like I liked High School Musical. I enjoyed the Oliver film when I was younger. And so I think it was always there for whatever reason. Maybe because I'm gay, who knows.
I think there might be a correlation between the two, but not a causation.
Yes. We're not here to perpetuate stereotypes.
No. Oh, to sound really basic, I very much enjoyed Hamilton and have the Hamilton CD.
Yes.
But in all fairness, that was like actually more of a purchase like Tate made, and like I very much enjoy and I very much tear up on. I'm not sure I would have bought it myself.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Maybe? I don't know. But Hamilton's great.
Yeah. We may well be talking about that at some point. Yeah. And we'll be talking about other musicals as well. So who knows? Maybe in the course of this, I can spark more of a love of musicals in you. I can introduce you to some of my favourites, and then who knows?
Who knows?
I think for me, when examining why I love musical theatre as well, a part of it is what we've talked about with some of the albums we've talked about with Mumford & Sons, with Decemberists, like the lyricism and lyrical storytelling. Particularly we talked about with Decemberists, I think. And for me, like that's what I love in those albums. And that's what really clicks with me in music in general. Mm-hmm. I think I talked about this before as well, but I've not really been someone who has gravitated towards music naturally. Possibly in the same way that, like, or a similar relationship you have to musical theatre. Like, you can enjoy it well enough, but it doesn't draw you in massively. Mm-hmm. But I think the way that musical theatre... Well, I think that musical theatre hits on what I can appreciate in music, which is the storytelling and the lyricism. Like, it's the perfect encapsulation of that like, we are literally telling a story, and using music to do it, and also then taking advantage of clever lyricism, and also with reference to Les Mis particularly, I've noted down, like, Confrontation and Little Fall of Rain as ways of using, like, duetting and harmony, and you also have in Les Mis, like, the motifs that crop up again and again, which is just very intelligent ways of using music to tell a story. Yeah. Which is kind of what I love in music, and then musical theatre is the perfect encapsulation of that.
Yeah, it does. There is something very, like, satisfying about watching, not watching, but like listening to like the back and forth that they do without, like, with the music working in both ways, and like having, like, like it is really great to watch. Like, listen to.
Yeah.
And it's a funny, like, I was thinking about how Les Mis is a funny, like, one to have turned into a musical. Like, I've never like read the book.
Yeah.
But, like, my background knowledge of it...
Found on the web. According to MuppetCentral.com. Too funny.
Echo, stop. She picked up on something. She started talking about the goddamn Muppets. Like, what was I saying? Oh yeah, like, from my, like, knowledge of, like, about the book Les Mis, like, it seems like a very, like, heavy, like, like, lots of like, I kind of want to know, like, who who made it? Like, who came up with this idea? Like, hey, I'm going to turn this into a musical. Like,
Yeah.
of all things. But it works.
Yeah.
Like, and it's able to get across those like emotions, which, you know, it refers to a certain point in history, but I think that there's something very, like, universal with the emotions behind, like, the characters in Les Mis.
Yeah.
The questioning behind, like, right and wrong, and...
Yeah, and the importance of freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Universal ideals that
Yes.
it kind of brings to the forefront.
Exactly. And it, like you say, like, you know, poetically, like, lyrically, it really makes you feel all of those things, like, very, very well. In a way that potentially another form couldn't.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's worth a comment or half a comment about its link to opera.
Okay.
And so this is where I try to give a musical theatre history and do a really bad job of it. But musical theatre kind of has its roots partly in vaudeville performances and partly in opera. So you kind of see different shows leaning in different ways. And so I think it's like this is quite clearly a show that is much closer to opera. It's entirely sung through, and there is an operatic style to it. And obviously operas deal a lot of the time with, well, they deal in melodrama.
Yes.
And big emotions kind of thing.
Yes. I saw Madame Butterfly. That's the only opera I've seen.
Right. I have seen La Boheme.
Oh, nice.
Which is the opera that Rent is based on.
Yes, I'm aware.
But yeah, I can't remember the point I was making now. Why I was describing that. What did you say?
The ones that, like, leaned more towards... The musicals that lean more towards opera have the melodrama, have the heaviness, like the
Yes.
more poppy, like, musicals don't.
Yeah, although I think that is an oversimplification, especially
Yes.
nowadays, especially with more modern musicals. And there
Yes.
is, yeah, we're not getting entirely into that because there's a lot of nuance there that I wouldn't be able to properly. I mean, it would take me a good half hour, an hour to fully lay it all out, and even then I wouldn't do a good job of it. But yeah, I think Les Mis succeeds and has been so successful in its accessibility, like you say, in the things it brings to the forefront of this story, which really shouldn't necessarily work because it's so convoluted and so all over the place in terms of plot. Mm-hmm. I think it works because it pulls to the forefront these ideas of freedom and morality that are relatable and are very easy to grasp onto, and also melding those big ideals with music, which just makes you feel the emotions of the characters so well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. And I think this kind of hits on something, again, that is a thing that works for musical theatre for me in seeing it in a live performance, particularly. Like most people, my experience of musical theatre is mostly, or like most people who are into musical theatre, my experience is mostly cast albums. Mm-hmm. Because you can't go and see shows all the time because that costs a lot of money.
Yep. But
seeing a show in person and just the feeling of someone belting out a song kind of thing.
Yeah.
And belting out their emotions is very difficult to describe the impact that it can have. But it's the difference between, like, I Dreamed a Dream didn't do much for me until I saw it on the West End. And that was the first part I cried in the show because the actress really just sold it and made me feel it.
Yeah.
And then, I cried through the entire second act. But, as you might expect. But also, on our performance, our Valjean was like the second understudy. It was like the lead wasn't able to do it and his understudy wasn't able to do it. So like we got the program and we couldn't even, me and my friend who I went to see it with, we got the program and we couldn't even find who our guy was in the program.
Oh.
like I'm sure he was in there, but we couldn't,
Yeah.
but he wasn't the lead or anything. So it was like we weren't sure which of the understudies he was, because there was like a few understudies and we thought he was the third one, but it was hard to know. But
Good on that guy.
Yeah, he absolutely killed it. And because you also got the feeling that, like, this is his chance. Like, he doesn't get to go on much. And this was his chance to go on. And it was almost like you could feel him putting absolutely everything into the performance. And it was just wonderful. So, the film.
Oof.
Yeah. See, now, I said this to you off podcast, but when I first watched this film, I enjoyed it, and I kind of defended it, and people were very critical of Russell Crowe, and I was like, oh, he's not that bad. Like, I enjoyed it well enough. I don't quite know why anymore. Like, I think part of it was I was just very enjoying the musical at that time. I can't remember whether I saw the film before or after I saw it in the West End. Probably it would have been before. But having seen the amateur productions, like, maybe that was it as well. I'd never seen it performed like proper professionally. And so my expectations were lower. But yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that like to give it its merit, I think it does a good job in terms of like one thing that theatre can't do is it can't like do setting particularly well. Like, you know, ultimately,
Sure, you have to imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot of stretching of the imagination, and I think it does a pretty good job in terms of like setting, I guess.
Production value.
Thank you. Production is the word I'm looking for. Production value.
Yeah, and cinematography's decent.
Yeah.
It's a well-made film.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like, despite, like we've mentioned, it being a convoluted plot line, like it carries through. It's pretty, like, it does a pretty good job of like introducing all the necessary characters. I mean, I'd argue that that's just carried over from like the musical aspect. Like, do you get what I mean?
Much.
Like the script was already written to a certain degree. But, you know, like, does a good job there. Costumes are great.
Yeah. I think it won costumes. Oscars, I think. Obviously, Anne Hathaway won.
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff.
Credit to her for shaving her head. You know, that's some serious acting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, just like a great performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Okay, so I think for me, one of the reasons it doesn't do well. So you're talking about, and we're putting aside performances here for a second at least.
Yeah.
And you're saying about like production value is good, and that like that's something that on the stage you need to imagine much of, and there needs to be a suspension of disbelief, because what you're watching people on the stage. You're not watching 19th century France. And so in theatre there is suspension of disbelief is entirely necessary.
Yes. And expected.
Yes, exactly. When you're watching any theatrical show, musical or not. And particularly with this show, and it's a thing with sung through musicals in general, I think, again, it's a problem that Rent faces. Where, with a sung through show, when you're suspending your disbelief already when you're watching a piece of theatre, the fact that people are singing things that they should just be saying, you can just kind of accept as part of the art form and the way that we're telling this story. When it's a film, however, you're not suspending your disbelief.
Yeah.
typically in a film, it's as if you're in the room with the characters, right? You're in the scene and you are just watching what's happening. There's a sense of like you're watching a reality. And so when they're singing things that they really should just be saying, it feels wrong.
Yeah.
I think. And it doesn't work. And I think with the Rent film, they change a lot of the dialogue which is sung in the musical into just speech because it makes it feel more natural, right?
Yeah. I remember I saw the Les Mis musical, I saw the Les Mis film in the cinema. And I don't know how old would we have been? About 14?
I think it was 2012. Well, no, we'd be much older than that if it was 2012.
Yeah, wait a sec. Film adaptation. Yeah, it was 2012. You're right.
Yeah.
But like,
we'd have been like 16.
Yeah. You know when you're engrossed in a movie and then it takes you like a while to notice something like really obvious about said movie? So like, I can remember watching the movie in the cinema. And it got to the scene, it got as far as Valjean dragging Marius through the sewer. And suddenly I went, there hasn't been a break in the singing. Like, there hasn't been like... I was just like, hang on a second. Like, there hasn't been a point where the music stopped. Because like, I was so used to like musicals where like kind of like Glee style, where they just like occasionally would just like break out into the song.
Sure, yeah.
And I was just like, like, so yeah, it took, well, clearly the movie engrossed me enough that it took me like that long to fully click something very obvious.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't pick up on it before that because I think there are scenes where it's quite apparent.
Yeah. I mean, we complimented the song Confrontation in the musical, and then that in the movie is just, like, painful to watch.
I think that's less, though, about characters singing when they should just be speaking, and more about they put a sword fight in there. Which kind of makes it like, why are you singing when you're having a sword fight?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you understand in a way why they have the sword fight, because again, they can't just sing at each other, because that works on a stage, right? Because the battle that they're having is they're singing at each other.
Yes.
And that is the fight. But you can't have that on a film.
No. They've always got to be doing something.
Yeah. Because it's reality, and you can't have this like metaphorical thing of like they're getting one up on each other or whatever in their song kind of thing. It's a great song as well, and they just had to have a sword fight, and then Valjean jumps out the window into the sea.
So what made you turn on the movie? You said you enjoyed the movie.
Well, I think this is what ostensibly we used to do on this podcast, and I think we've done less and less as we go. But looking back on it, I don't know how I liked it, to be honest. Like, I just think there's a lot that really doesn't work. I don't think it's a show that translates well to film because of being sung through. I think Russell Crowe's performance is bad.
There's something so... And, like, we lived in Bath, so...
Oh, God, that's the worst bit of the film for me.
It is the worst bit of the film. So, if you need a memory jog, in the film, Javert, like, when he commits suicide, like, jumps off a bridge, and he lands in the water, and, like, what is it called, that...
I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
But essentially, it was filmed in Bath, and the river itself has, like, a little like big like steps almost that like create like a like waterfall effect as like as the water kind of goes like downhill. And so they use that for film, and so when Russell Crowe like falls, he lands on one of those steps, and it's just a crack, and it takes you out of the movie completely because it is so like funny. It's just very cringy.
Yeah, because it's almost like jarringly not graphic, but like that kind of thing, brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you've been living in a musical world for however long, and then it's suddenly like, listen to this guy hit the water.
Yeah.
And like I don't quite know why it was left in. Like why they didn't just like, you know, the shot before is him jumping, and like it could have just been left at that. But for whatever reason they included it in. And and in the cinema everybody like did just a nervous chuckle. Like
yeah, because it just completely takes you out of it.
Yeah.
You're right, it completely takes you out of it.
And I feel sorry for Russell Crowe because, you know, like that's a song that like he would have had to have put a lot of work into, and like was probably like is a big build up in terms of the character and all of that, and then like but all everybody remembers of that scene is that crack.
I mean, I think in fairness, like people remember enough of the rest of Russell Crowe's performance anyway. But which kind of brings us on to, you had me watch a YouTube video about the film and about some of the problems with the singing in the film.
Yes.
Did you want to summarise?
Yeah.
We'll put a link in the show notes to the video.
I'd really recommend this YouTube channel called Sideways that essentially looks at like the music and vocal performances like in a lot of like movies. And I believe that specific video is why the Les Mis movie is worse than you thought.
Why the music in Les Mis movie is worse than you thought, or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, essentially he goes through how, I believe it's Tom Hooper.
Yeah.
That his attempt to do live performances. Well, he attempted to do two things. Like, one is the live performance, and that creates a problem in terms of diegetic sound, in terms of, like, vocal performances having to get it, like, correct. Like, you know, theatres are made for vocal performances. Sets aren't necessarily. And then also the attempt to make it a bit more gritty and realistic. So because like as we've discussed, because it's simultaneously a musical and also they're trying to, you know, the production and the performances are trying to make it more realistic and grounded, but that doesn't really work for singing. So it means that you have Anne Hathaway sobbing during her performance of I Dreamed a Dream. You know, I like re-listening to, like actually listening to, you know, Valjean's like soliloquy or like What Have I Done? And I was like, oh, I can actually see like how good of a song this is, but like, what's his face?
Hugh Jackman. Hugh
Jackman's performance of it is very like,
right. Yeah, and they talk about how basically they had to do these performances over and over again.
Yeah.
In a day, like as you would in any acting scene. But the problem with it vocally is that you can't do incredibly difficult vocal performances over and over again and expect it to be any good. Yeah. Vocally. And it kind of talks about that.
Yeah. I mean, like they kind of touch into, like, vocal performance is just a thing that needs, like, so much, like, rest and taking care of your health.
Yeah.
And ultimately, many of the actors weren't taking care of their health. And so it is not surprising that the end product, like, leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to their vocal performances. Like, I I feel very sorry for the actors involved in this project.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point that the video makes of like they made the actors push themselves too far, and that it was never going to result in great vocal performances just because of the way that like if you sing so much and you try to like these are not easy songs to sing anyway, and so if you get the actors to push themselves that much, then you're not going to end up with good vocal performances. However, there was one point that the video made that you've kind of made as well that I wanna question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is whether in a film the vocal performance is the most important thing. So in the video, he does a thing where he takes Anne Hathaway's "I Dreamed a Dream" and he puts it on a black screen and says like, listen to it, like this doesn't sound good, like it's not a good vocal performance. For me, watching the film, when you're watching a film, that doesn't matter as much. And I actually really like Anne Hathaway's "I Dreamed a Dream" performance because I think she sells it. And this is something that I'd not realised when I watched the film before, and didn't realise until like watching the film and then listening to the cast recording in preparation for this, that they jig the structure around as well. "I Dreamed a Dream" happens before "Lovely Ladies" in the show.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to shift it around, but it basically means that Fantina's at her absolute lowest point when she sings it in the film.
Yeah.
Where she hasn't quite been sent there in the show. And putting her in that place in the film just like doubly emphasizes like the tragedy of the song and the state. Like Anne Hathaway made clear choices in the acting of it that like she is in a state at this moment, right? And you almost get the sense that like she's imagining these things and like she's not entirely, it's going to be the wrong way to phrase it, but not entirely lucid.
Yeah.
When she's performing it. And I think for me that really sells that song really well. And like her, like he criticizes in the YouTube video like the gas infographic and the crying affecting her voice, but I don't think it makes sense in a more realistic portrayal of this story, which is what the film goes for. I don't think it makes sense for her to give a perfect vocal performance in that moment in her story, because the character wouldn't. The character isn't in a position where they're going to sing beautifully. The character's in a position where they're going to be desperate and in a bit of a state. And I think having that come across in the performance actually makes sense for me in that moment. And I think it's actually the one place in the film where the poor vocal performance makes sense. Because there's plenty of moments in the film, pretty much all of Javert's stuff, a lot of Valjean's stuff, there's no reason for them not to be singing as well as that they can in those moments. But in this, and also, you could argue, to a lesser extent, but in Empty Chairs and Empty Tables, it's not necessarily about it being the perfect vocal performance. It's about them selling the emotion of the character in the moment, I think. And so that's kind of a way that I disagree with the premise of that video. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right in terms of they decided on something and they went for it, and to a certain extent they accomplished that.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm not defending the bad singing in the rest of the film. And I think obviously or the treatment of the actors or anything like that, but I think there are ways in which it does work as well. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I suppose I'd just argue that for a musical, for me, yeah,
the performances have to be good.
But what performance? That's the thing that I'd questioned, because I'd say that Anne Hathaway's acting performance is the reason why she won the Oscar. Yeah. Like, her acting performance is great.
Yes.
And I think when it's a film, I think that's more important. No?
Yeah, I do like... Yeah, she does act well. Like, it's just such a difficult one. I just... I don't know. Yeah. Oh, my brain's gone blank.
That's okay. I guess it depends on expectations going in a little bit as well.
Yes.
And what you're expecting from a musical film. Particularly, arguably, a musical film of a musical that a lot of people are aware of, even if they don't really know it, right? Like, Les Mis is arguably the most famous musical.
Maybe.
I'm asking that question because, as someone who knows now a lot of musicals, I don't have a good grasp on the musicals that a layperson knows. But I think in terms of, like, if you asked a random person on the street to name a musical,
I think Les Mis would definitely come up.
Yeah, it would be up there. And so I think when you're turning that into a film, people are expecting to go see a musical. And so I can then understand that you'd want the musical performances to be as good as possible. I just don't... It was the thing I found myself disagreeing with most about that YouTube video.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm now looking at the highest grossing musical films.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what's number one?
Mamma Mia.
No. The Lion King is still number one. But then...
yeah, of course, Disney. Yeah, yes. I wasn't thinking about Disney.
It's all...
Beauty and the Beast.
So Frozen there is... Frozen
right.
1 and 2 is there. Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. So the first, like, musical film that's not Disney is Bohemian Rhapsody at number 8.
Yeah.
Mamma Mia is number 11.
Yeah, see, now I'd say Mamma Mia is the top then, because Bohemian Rhapsody isn't a musical.
Yeah. Then Les Mis is number 20, just ahead of The Greatest Showman. And then right at the bottom at number 50 is Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip.
I don't think we're going to be talking about that one.
High School Musical 3 Senior Year is at number 47.
I've not seen that.
We've
talked about that before. We've talked about that before.
What? How have you not seen the third one? Like...
No, I watched the first two when I was into it, and then the third one came out a bit later. And you know what it was? We're completely tangenting, but it's fine. Disney Channel used to be included as standard on Sky, and was when 1 and 2 had come out. By the time 3 came out, it wasn't. And that's why I hadn't seen it.
Yes. See, I saw High School Musical 3 at the premiere that they were doing, like, all over the city. And I even got, like, they gave us, like, gift bags. Like,
I don't know if you have... I think you've told this story on the podcast before.
No, I don't think I have. Maybe it's just my proudest moment.
Apparently.
It wasn't actually that big of an event in my life. If it's come up twice, I apologise.
So Les Mis.
Do you know, I don't even know what the story of Phantom is. Like... I know that people love it.
Not great. But we won't be talking about that either.
In terms of Broadway revenue,
again, Les Mis
is number 9.
Right.
It goes Lion King, then Wicked, then Phantom, then Chicago, then The Book of Mormon, then Mamma Mia, then Hamilton, then Jersey Boys, then Les Mis.
Yeah.
And then Cats is number 10.
Yeah.
Rent is number 17.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And yeah, number 25 is where the list ends, and that is Ada Ida?
Don't know.
AIDA?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Which is... What year is it?
It is 2000 and... Oh, also known as Elton John and the Tim Rice Ada, is a musical based on the opera of the same name, written blah. It's an Elton John musical.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're questioning that.
Yeah. Like, but it's also about Egypt. Like,
I know nothing about it. But yeah, no. For the record, Billy Elliot is Elton John. As is Lion King, obviously.
Good to know. Do you know, I'm surprised Oliver isn't on here.
I mean, for one, you're looking Broadway.
Oh yeah.
Not West End.
Where's the difference?
Yes, Broadway is in New York, West End is in London. There's a big difference.
I didn't realise that was the, like, distinction.
Yeah.
I just thought that they were... Did you know that I thought melons and lemons were the same fruit, but that just people had different names for them? Similarly, I thought West End and Broadway was the exact same thing. It's just that people had different names for them.
Wow. Yeah, no, quite different.
Yeah.
An ocean apart.
The difference is only location?
I mean, yeah. It's literally, that is what it's referring to. Broadway is the street in New York where there are lots of theatres. And I don't think a show, like if a show is technically on Broadway in quotation marks nowadays, it's not necessarily on Broadway necessarily. I don't know about that. But yeah, no. So that's specifically in New York. If something is a Broadway show, it is in New York. If something is on the West End, it is in London. It is in a big London theatre. Okay,
so then what counts, like, what musicals do I know that are West End?
Well, okay, so this is... A musical isn't either West End or Broadway, right? So Les Mis is currently playing on the West End and has been continuously for a long time. I don't know if it's still on Broadway, but it is just a musical, right? Les Mis is a musical, and then there will be West End productions of it, and there will be Broadway productions of it. Phantom, I believe, is still on Broadway. It plays on Broadway, and it's in the West End. So a musical is not either West End or Broadway. However, if a musical is British, it is likely to have had its debut on the West End and then transferred to Broadway, or you'll have, say, for example, Hamilton. It started off Broadway, then it went on Broadway, and then it transferred to London into the West End. So it's now playing on Broadway and in the West End. But yeah.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Top 10 West End musicals. Les Mis is number 1.
Yes, that's not a surprise. Mamma Mia will be high up there, as will Wicked, as will Lion King.
Hamilton is second.
Hamilton is second. Wow.
Yeah. Lion King is third, then Book of Mormon, then Mamma Mia. Then
Wait, what
Phantom.
What list are you looking at?
I know, top 10 West End musicals.
Is this just someone's ranking of them, though?
No, this is a website. This is westend.com.
Oh, yeah, that means nothing, though.
Yeah, true.
So somewhere in here, I need to cut this.
No, this is the official website for the West End.
Yeah, but what does the ranking mean? I'm going on westend.com. I don't know how much. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this.
Okay, our definitive list of the top 10 currently showing incorporate all-time classics, award-winning record breakers, and the
currently showing.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh Christ. Anyway.
We were doing so well.
Yeah. Sure. So that was Les Mis. This is where you say something.
Oh right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that was Les Mis. It was good. It was good to re-listen to.
Yeah? Did you enjoy the cast recording more than you enjoyed the film?
I did.
Good. I'm glad we've done a musical.
Yes. I'm glad
We've dipped a toe in. We found out that you don't know the difference between Broadway and West End, so we know the battle we're facing.
I'm going to come off as an idiot, aren't I, in this?
You're not going to come off as an idiot. Just someone who doesn't know a lot about musical theatre. But that's fine. I may also come off as someone who doesn't know a lot about musical theatre. So it's like, we do our best. We do our best. And that's what matters.
Yes.
And
nostalgia-wise, it was very interesting for me to go back to Les Mis, bearing in mind that, like, obviously because we were in high school when the movie came out and when it was at, like, a big height in terms of re-popularity.
Sure.
Like, it's funny how, like, a musical can, like, be in the background of a lot, like, when you're growing up. And so it was very fun to go back to. I didn't actually mention this, but because I had singing lessons at the time, at the end of the day was, like, one that, like, I had to, like, practice a lot. And that
seems a strange choice.
I know. And then I had to, like, so in order to get to my house when I was growing up, I had to walk up this hill on the way home from school. And so I'd often be practicing that song while walking up that hill. And, like, it's a good beat to, like, be consistently, like, walking to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was funny to, like, re-listen to that. And then I was like, this is quite a sad song for me to be, like, singing at the end of a school day.
Yeah, it's not the most cheerful of songs.
No.
Oh. So next time
we'll be discussing Be More Kind, the album by Frank Turner, and it will be coming out on the 5th of June, so you have until the 5th of June to listen to it.
That's a risky decision. To say the date. Hopefully it will be coming out on the 5th of June.
We're professionals by now. Like,
no, I'm not okay with that designation. So thank you for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so at our website nostalgiasperspective.co.uk, or email us at nostalgiasperspective@gmail.com, or leave us a comment on YouTube, or a message on Instagram, or comment on something over there. And we will see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
What's bye in French?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Oh, I need coffee.